Assalamu alaikum to everyone, and welcome back to episode 2 of The Inner Voice, season 1. We had a lot of positive feedback on the episode we had 2 weeks ago. And this time around, we have a very interesting topic, the concept of Taqwa, a youth awakening. With us today, we have 4 panelists. We had 3 last time, we have 4 today. We want to welcome back our Maulana Sayyid Zishan Haidar Naqvi, who is our resident alim here in Mombasa. Maulana, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Our second panelist, guest panelist for today is Shabar Karim. He needs no introduction in Mombasa. Shabar has served in various committees within the community, and currently he also teaches at the Hussaini Madrasa, and he's been quite active, especially in the months of Muharram and Safar. For those of you who recall the sports festival that we had, the Golden Journey of Ali Bai Panju, he was quite active and at the forefront of these 2 events. Shabar, assalamu alaikum, and welcome to the talk show. And Shabar, you are on mute. We'll need you to talk, so please unmute that.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having me on tonight's show.
It's an honor indeed. Our next panelist, guest panelist, is Zuhair Ladak. Zuhair is a lawyer by profession, and he specializes in international human rights. He is also an excellent debater, so skills that we should definitely see on this program tonight. Zuhair, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thank you for having me on tonight's show. It's an honor.
Pleasure is all ours. And then finally, we have Muhammad Kaki. Muhammad migrated back to Mombasa from the UK a couple of years ago, I think it was. And he's currently also a teacher at the Hussaini Madrasa in Mombasa, and also very active with Who is Hussein. Muhammad, welcome to the show. Salamun alaikum to you.
Alaikum salam, and thank you for having me.
Right, so going back to the screen where we want to show our viewers currently right now what's going on. So the concept of Taqwa, a youth awakening. This episode, what we intend to do is delve on a topic that sometimes might be a little elusive in terms of what we know about it. Definitely we come to the mosque, we do all our religious obligations. The question is Taqwa in itself and how we need to attain it, which sometimes seems to be an issue when it comes to it. It's the core requirement of the faithful. Question is practicing religion equal to attaining Taqwa? Now, before I go forward, we want our guests, our viewers, right now who are watching this live, we do have your questions that can be taken. Area code 254, that's the country code in Kenya. Phone number is 702-100-130, that's 100-130. Let's start the talk show. We asked the Maulana Sahib, we want you to give us a brief introduction on the ideology of Taqwa and relating it to religion as such, so to speak, please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين وهو خير ناصر ومعين. First and foremost, I'm really thankful to Nazir Bhai and all the team, those who have organized this program and have given us the opportunity and privilege to participate in this program. Taqwa, when we look at the taqwa, it is something you find in numerous verses of Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put a lot of emphasis on it. And likewise, we have a lot of riwayat. Riwayat also has put a lot of light on the concept of taqwa. And if you look at the religion, every Friday, you know, when a khatib or imam is giving khutbah, you find, you know, repeatedly he's mentioning this, you know, sentence, I advise you for taqwa, or I advise to maintain taqwa. So imam is told by Sharia to always advise people about the taqwa. When we look at the definition of taqwa, there are a lot of definition has been given by our ulama. But first of all, when we look at the literal meaning of taqwa, we can understand the concept of taqwa somehow. So taqwa, it is an Arabic word and derived from a root word that is called wiqaya. The meaning of wiqaya, it is abstinence or protection from anything that is harmful for the man. And that is why when it comes to Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam, when he defined taqwa, he says, Al-muttaqi man ittaqa min ad-dhunub. The righteous one or muttaqi one who abstain himself or who protect himself from the sins. So we can say taqwa, it is a concept, or it is a malaka, or it is an ability, or it is a power that is found in your heart or in your spirit that make you to do things that make you to closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that make you to prohibit from things those, you know, get you know, distance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And likewise, if you look at the Quran, in very beginning of the Quran, so we recite in Surah Al-Baqarah, Alif Lam Mim Dhalikal Kitabu La Rayba Fihi Hudal Lil Muttaqin. This book, it is for those who are muttaqi. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explain who are muttaqi, what are their quality, or from there you can derive the definition or concept of taqwa. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Hudal lil muttaqin alladhina yu'minuna bil ghayb. 5 concepts Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has presented over there. The muttaqi, he has 5. Number 1, ilmul ghayb. He has faith in ghayb. And number 2, he established salat. And number 3, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they do infaq. Number 4, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said they have faith in anbiya. And number 5, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said they have faith in hereafter. So if you look at the concept of taqwa, it is very vast. And in other words, we can say, looking at all those ayat and looking at all those riwayat and definitions of ulama, we can say taqwa, it is the spirit and the soul of our actions. So that is why we can say the factor or the cause of the actions is always taqwa.
So Sahib, one thing you started off by saying is that taqwa is abstinence. That's the word that came out and stood out for me. And this is a word that our youth also need to perhaps get a full understanding of abstinence. Yeah. Abstinence, what is it? For example, we live in a society that is multicultural. We have students going to school, our youth, where it's a little difficult to form the concept of abstinence. Can you elaborate? And anyone, Shabar, Zuhair, Muhammad, please feel free to elaborate on this as well.
Yeah, this is, you know, as you have mentioned, that we are living in a society where it is very difficult to, you know, maintain, you know, our religion. Of course, it is a place where our taqwa play its major role. And taqwa, it is not something that it belongs to a particular thing like our salat while we are in mosque. Taqwa is something that play its role wherever you are. You are in school, you are in society, you are in market, you are at home, you are in mosque. So when you are, for example, in a community, so over there taqwa comes and it says you whom to make friend. And what is the because if you are making a friend someone who is not proper and he is going to harm you, so here taqwa plays its role and it tells you that this is a bad friend and it is going to harm you and harm your religion, harm your dunya, and harm your hereafter.
Can we get an understanding of that, in a sense that when we say that something is going to harm us, yet we might have this idea or conception that no, nothing is going to harm me, I'm firm in my faith. How can we rest assured that whatever we think of or do in public, especially our youth, will not harm us, even though we think will harm us, even though we think it won't? Shabar, Zuhair, Muhammad, do you have anything to add to that?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maulana Saab has come out with the appropriate definition as how we have been made to understand this vast and a very deep word, taqwa. And we tend to use it sometimes quite easily in conversations and assume that we might be knowing its different connotations in our different aspects of life. He mentioned abstinence, yes. And he also mentioned shield. Taqwa is waqaya. Waqaya is to protect, a shield. So what are we protecting from? That is the first thing to understand. We're protecting, from what we understand, we're protecting our soul from damage. Does this soul get protected from damage if we pray our daily prayers, if we fast, for example, if we do our sunnats, if we give charity? For example, in the Quran, it says that fasting has been prescribed for us because it would make us achieve taqwa. The cause is fasting, the effect is taqwa. So your question or your hypothesis was that abstinence, Nazir, how does it help us in achieving this particular goal of taqwa? And we say that we are so firm in faith. We do fast, we do pray, we do all the wajibats. We are in our mindset religious. So we take the example immediately as you asked that. What came to mind were two personalities. In the Quran, both of them are there. One is Yusuf in Surah Yusuf, and one is a guy called Barambola. Maulana Saab, if I've pronounced that correctly, if you could just correct me. Balambora. And this entity or this guy, Balambora, isn't it? Yeah. He is mentioned in Surah Araf. So you have Yusuf on one side, who is accosted with the wiles and the attraction of Zulaykha. And this Zulaykha is, we take it to be, the Zulaykha of our time is not only necessarily women, it's also greed, lust, power, money, right? Instant gratification, these types of things are all Zulaykha of our time. Right? It's not only restricted to that particular context. I mean, the Quran gives us examples which we should be applying in our lives. So this Zulaykha, today even we can equate to many Zulaikhas that we find as attractions of this dunya. Right? And Prophet Yusuf set out on a path whereby he was able to protect his soul. And because he was able to protect his soul and because he had understanding of that, he became one of the mukhlisin. Right? And so God ensured that his soul is protected as well. I'm sorry, but this is just something that comes out of my head. Maulana Saab, please correct me if I'm wrong. Because I'm in waters, probably I might be.
So based on what you're saying, is it, we can take it that taqwa, it has immense pressure on us. Number one, the youth face a lot of pressure in today's society. You know that, right? Then when we think about taqwa, it has immense pressure in what way? In the spiritual aspect.
You see, this is where the second personality comes in. This other guy in Surah Araf is mentioned, and he was a very pious man. So we say we pray. He was praying, We say we fast. He was fasting. He was doing all these religious acts. He was a very pious man. Some Tafasirs say he was at the time of Prophet Musa. But what is known is that he was there at the time of a prophet of Bani Israel. He was so pious, as we in our minds, when we talk about taqwa, we say piety, pious, and we immediately equate that to practicing religion. So let's take it in our layman definition, the way we understand it today, and see how wrong that is, right? So he was practicing religion according to what we think. He was praying, he was fasting, he was doing all this. And what happened was that an enemy of that nation wanted to attack that nation. They went to him, they told him, listen, you are so pious, you are so religious, so everything. People respect you. Yet again, this nation is led by a prophet and not by you. That prophethood, you deserve it. And he said, you know, already those seeds started coming in. This is where the taqwa shield, the protection of the soul, comes into play. All right. And because his taqwa was lower, he succumbed. What did he succumb to? They gave him women. He took that. They gave him wealth. He took that. They gave him positions. He took that. The very three things that haunt humanity since the time of existence are these three things, right? And they come in different contexts, but basically, and he succumbed. And when he succumbed,
are you saying that praying, fasting did not make him attain taqwa, even though he was doing all of that?
That cannot be true as well. Maulana Sahab, again, I'm treading in deep waters. If you are able to interject, then please feel free to do so. Nazir is trying
Zuhair wanted to say something. Zuhair, please.
If I may come in, if I may come in, with regards to taqwa, to confine it to abstinence probably is doing an injustice to the whole word in itself. In essence, taqwa, of course, would broadly mean to be aware of and to be cognizant of the existence of God and to act in accordance to that knowledge. Taqwa in itself is basically a mindset. God consciousness is a mindset. And in actions with regards to that cognizance, of course, is something that probably will lead to taqwa. Okay, abstinence is one aspect of it. There is also the positive obligation that one has to act in accordance to that mindset of understanding the cognizance of God. That is one aspect. The other issue is that as far as the Shia faith is concerned, the whole line of attainment in taqwa and probably rising up to your level is also very closely related to wilayah. Wherever the issue of taqwa has been mentioned in the Holy Quran, it has also been mentioned in accordance to wilayah. Of course, Surah 5, verse 55 is a very good example, where Allah basically mentions that He is the wali of the mu'mineen, and the Prophet is the wali of the mu'mineen, and of course, the one who prays and in the position of ruku gives zakah is also the wali of the mu'mineen. Of course, this is all a pathway towards attaining taqwa. Let us not be in the interjection that probably abstinence alone. No, there is also a positive obligation that one has to do. But along with that, one has to also understand the concept of wilayah in relation to taqwa.
Can I just come in here 1 second, Nazir? Because yes. Your question was that the youths do feel that we are praying, we are fasting. Right? Yes. We're doing all these wajibat acts. We are being religious, right? We come to mosque, we participate in azadari, we are there for the wiladats, we are everywhere, and we do these things. So we do not need to be concerned as such because we are protected, we are doing these things. But here was an example of this guy. For a purpose I gave this. Why? Because he was far more religious than we could have aspired to be, and yet he succumbed. Now, what exactly my train of thought was exactly in the line that Zuhair just mentioned. It's basically a way of life, this phrase that we use, taqwa. It's a lifestyle. It cannot be restricted to prayers and fasting. And those prayers and fasting may not come to use for us if we lose sight of the fact that at all times our objective should be Allah in every action that we do.
I have a question that just came in, or a comment that just came in regards to fasting. The gentleman says fasting does not guarantee taqwa. then he highlights, so that you may attain taqwa. Conditions of fasting apply in order to attain taqwa, right? So all acts of worship so that you may attain taqwa. So there are conditions that apply in all of this that we do. Maulana Said Muhammad, I want to hear from you. But before I do, Maulana, can you elaborate on these conditions that we are being asked? You know, there are some conditions that apply for fasting, for praying, so that you may attain taqwa. Question: what are these conditions?
Yes. Actually, you know, sometimes we think that the actions like salat, like fasting and hajj and all actions, if we exercise them, we are religious and taqwa is with us. So over here, we can say action cannot be guaranteed that you are attaining taqwa. Because we got a lot of examples. The example that Shabbar Bhai has presented. Because that Bal'am Ba'ur, he was drawn because because he had lower class of the taqwa. And look at the, for example, Shimr ibn Dhul-Jawshan. Shimr ibn Dhul-Jawshan, he used to pray salat. Umar ibn Sa'ad, he was the son of closest companion of Rasulullah. And they were hafiz the Quran, they were performing salat. But what happened? They have come to the Karbala and they get ready to kill the son of Rasulullah. It was all about the taqwa.
Can I interject and I ask you a question? And this relates to us as well. We say that Shimr and all of them were praying, Lanatullah alayh. Okay, fine, I understand. But one thing that I want to also ask, they did not recognize the Imam of the time. Yeah. They did not have taqwa. So we as Shias, following the Ahlul Bayt, especially the Imam of our time, is that one thing that we are lacking, recognizing the Imam, the Ma'rifah of the Imam? That is why perhaps we might be missing this element of taqwa, or the steps.
If I may come in here. As far as the issue of wilaya is concerned, as you can see, the way Maulana has brought out a very good example with regards to Shimr and of course the other protagonists in the Battle of Karbala. They were praying. They were praying, probably abstaining from quite a few other sins, performing some, irrespective of all that. Yet we today are actually cursing them. Why? Because, as you rightly mentioned, Nazir, was the fact that they did not recognize the Imam of their time. That is why they saw him. They saw him. That is why they faced him in battle. And eventually, of course, the history of Karbala is there for everybody to see. But with regards to that, doesn't the fact that the recognition of the Imam of the time becomes a critical, pivotal concept when it comes to taqwa. If one wants to attain a level closeness to Allah, then you will have to go through the Imam of your time. There is no other doorway that you are going to bypass. At the end, let us understand this, that God himself did not bypass that particular medium to come to you. So if you're going to go to him, then you have to pass through that medium. That's what logic would dictate. Therefore, Muhammad, if we are... What? Sorry. Yeah.
That's okay, Muhammad.
Therefore, if we are...
Okay, basically, recognizing the Imam and accepting his word, I feel are two different things. You know, we can recognize someone, but when the Imam comes, we know for sure that not all the Shias are going to be following him. We have seen in history how many of the Shias actually stood with the Imams. Yeah, we have seen in Karbala as well how many people ran away from the Imam, you know, did not support him in his cause. We can see the people of Kufa, how they turned their back. Okay, the circumstances were different at that time. We cannot understand what they went through. But again, the same thing. Hundreds of thousands of people wrote to him. And yet, when Muslim Aqil went there, they turned back. So, in terms of taqwa, to also address the point about fasting, like the gentleman sent the comment, is that the ayat says, "Oh, you who believe, fasting has been prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you, so that you may guard against evil or ward of evil or learn self-restraint. So it's a double-edged thing. Yeah, it's not only being pious, it's also being restraining yourself from committing evil. There was actually a post I read online, and it summarizes it very nicely, that taqwa is not only about manners, it's not only about looking Islamic, it's not about the appearance. Taqwa is when you miss a prayer, you feel uneasy when you miss that prayer. You know, when you speak a lie, you feel bad. It's the guilt that follows when you hurt someone knowingly or unknowingly. It's the shame and regret that follows a sin you committed, knowing fully how it stands in the sight of Allah. You know, it's when you cannot sleep after disobeying or disrespecting your parents even, you know, to cry in the depths of the night, fearing none other than Allah, you know. So there's a whole list of practical things that represent what taqwa is. So it doesn't necessarily mean that I sport a beard or I wear a cap and a kanzu and I go to a mosque and I'm there, you know, 7 days a week for all the prayers. That doesn't mean that I have taqwa, or nobody can judge me based on my appearance. And it goes the other way as well. You know, it doesn't matter how someone dresses or how someone acts. If he just performs his wajibats and goes away and says, oh, what kind of person is this? As soon as the namaz finishes, he leaves. You can't judge someone like that. You can't say that this person doesn't have taqwa. In my opinion, basically, it's simple. Yeah, it's fulfilling our wajibats and staying away from haram. I think that's the basic level of taqwa. There's obviously different levels of taqwa that you can attain, but the basic level is fulfilling our wajibat and staying away from the haramat.
Now, as I understand it also, that taqwa, it has many levels, but not only staying away from that which is haram, it is also staying away from that which can lead you to something that is not, you know, so something that could be, so to speak, for lack of better word, halal or permitted in religion, but it is leading you to something that is not allowed. So you abstain from the first step before you reach the third or fourth step. Maulana Sahib, what do you have to say about that?
Actually, this comment is not only for this. Let me give you a, some brief. As Zuhair Bhai said, that the God consciousness, it doesn't come to you unless you have ma'rifah. And ma'rifah means ma'rifatullah, the ma'rifah of Allah, understanding of Allah. Ma'rifah means ma'rifatul Rasul, and ma'rifat Ahlul Bayt, ma'rifatul A'immah. So this ma'rifah, it is a condition of the taqwa. Once this ma'rifah you had, taqwa is automatically there. And ma'rifah doesn't mean to have only knowledge. Ma'rifah is composed with knowledge and with belief. So once you have this ma'rifah, so taqwa is there. And when taqwa is there, it encourages you to protect yourself from sins. It encourages you to fulfill your wajibat. As Muhammad Bhai Khaki, he said the definition of taqwa, fulfilling the wajibat and abstaining or keeping yourself away from the muharramat. This is one of the level of the taqwa. Ayatollah Bahjat, he has mentioned there are 3 levels of the taqwa. First level of taqwa, is staying with the wajibat and keeping yourself away from muharramat. Second is mustahabbat, performing mustahabbat. Third is abstaining even from makruhat. These are the levels of the taqwa. But first stage of the taqwa, it is that we have to keep ourselves away from muharramat and fulfill all the wajibat. These are the...
So Maulana Sahib, if I can summarize what Muhammad said and what you're just saying right now. Muhammad mentioned, for example, that even during the time of Imam, the Kufans, they turned their back towards the Imam. Now, what you're saying is to recognize our Imam. So basically what is happening is, in order to recognize the Imam, you need an unconditional level. With the people of Kufa, it was conditional, that our things will be taken away, our property will be taken. So that condition led them to turn away from the Imam. What we are saying is, and I'm just summarizing, is that our relationship with the Imam should be unconditional. Am I correct in that summary?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. Once you understand the Imam, all the conditions are removed. You will love him, you will follow him unconditionally. But the ma'rifah is important, because why people they are going against Imam? Because they did not have the ma'rifah of Imam. They did not know the essence of Imam. Who is Imam? Imam is someone we have to follow him unconditionally.
So what we understand is that one of the things to gain taqwa, or the pathway of taqwa, is unconditional love for our Imam, and to follow him also in the same manner.
As well as ma'rifah of Rasul, as well as ma'rifah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All three in sequence.
Okay. This question is a bit sensitive. So if you're listening to this question, I'm only narrating it. Talking of taqwa, is it not a prerequisite for our leaders who lead the community to be the foremost in piety? But then I have a problem with this question, in a sense that now we come to the part of judging, like Muhammad said, you know, so that they can lead the community towards taqwa and nearness to Allah, which is the ultimate goal. Do you have anything to say about that? Or is it too sensitive? You're all quiet.
No doubt. No doubt. Imam Ali alayhi salam is the best example of leadership. And in fact, it's a shame that the United Nations Council has adopted his letter to Malik Ashtar, whereas I have not heard of any Shia organization that has actually adopted it. So yes, taqwa is definitely a requirement or a prerequisite for a leader of a Shia Muslim community. However, how can you judge someone's level of taqwa? You know, that is the question. How do you judge who has attained a level of taqwa? It is only through their actions that you can determine a slight aspect of their level of taqwa. Obviously, you cannot judge someone based on just their appearance or what they have done for the community. So again, it's a very, like you said, sensitive topic which has to be dealt with carefully, and that is why we need that ilm within our communities, and revolve around in iman in order for us to have such leadership.
If I could just add in with a slight digression from this question, probably add some mirch masala to the discussion. When we consider someone who does a good act, not necessarily a Shia Muslim, not necessarily an Nashri, not necessarily even a Muslim, anyone who does a good act. You take in all these scientists that we have learned about in school. You take in Isaac Newton, for example. You take in all these Pascal, for example, Alexander Bell, who invented the telephone. Without him, technology today, this would be probably not possible. But all these guys, they've done good stuff. They've done good things, right? And they have served humanity in a certain way. And they've all said, and people say, look what they've done. They've all done good. But here is where Mutahari writes that within Islam and within the justice of Allah, the divine justice of Allah, in his book on divine justice, Mutahari writes that a person's actions, when it is judged, there are two types of judgments. There is the action-related action and the actor-related. The judgment comes under two, it is categorized within these two categories and summed up: action-related and actor-related. Action-related is what we see, someone doing good things, someone helping out humanity. And actor-related is to do with that person and where he is in this stage of taqwa, in his stage of piety towards Allah, in his stage of recognition of Allah, in his stage of, am I serving for Allah or something else? Just like, for example, Alexander Bell, just take him as an example, and very hypothetically, because we can't even talk about his intention. But when he invented the telephone, he wanted to do good stuff for humanity. He wanted to progress humanity towards Allah, or he wanted to do it for fame and fortune. Do you understand? So the discussion, I know it is digressed a bit from that question, but I thought I would just put it here for food for thought.
If I may come in with regards to the question, sorry, Nazir. As far as the issue of, the comments made by Mohammed Bai is concerned, I fully concur with regards to the fact that we cannot call a judgment on somebody's level of God consciousness or somebody's level of taqwa. But let me just put in or paraphrase here a hadith of the Prophet, which basically says that the type of people you are, Allah will place leaders similar to the type of course, people that in terms of your character. So in essence, to me, it seems like more of a very dynamic kind of a relationship between the led and the leader. Therefore, if in essence a group of people would like to have a pious leader, they need to inculcate piety or taqwa within themselves at the outset. Then, of course, you will reap those fruits in terms of the leadership that probably, inshallah, Allah will place upon you. But if you yourselves are, or if people themselves are not in that category of taqwa, they will not, of course, get a leader that will probably take them towards the door of taqwa. That is something that we are borrowing from the Prophet's hadith in terms of paraphrasing it. Now, coming to the aspect of leadership, I personally, this is my personal opinion, I believe that, of course, a leadership of any community or any nation for that matter, or any regional organization, plays an important role in setting the pathway towards taqwa. Every person would, of course, as belonging to any organization, would ask himself this question, that are our leaders taking us towards the imam or away from him, as far as our taqwa is concerned? And those are some of the questions that probably one can ask themselves, inculcate it within themselves as far as taqwa is concerned, and then, of course, pray for the leadership to, of course, look at a more pious pathway towards Allah. Nazir.
Maulana Sahib, is there anything that...
Yes, when it comes to the leadership, of course, if you look at the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many places, has given a name of Imam to the leader. So when we say Imam, it doesn't mean that he is like Imam of Imam Amir al-Mu'minin or Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So Imam means a leader. So a leader, of course, it needs set of conditions that has to be found in the leader, and then he must have all those capability, fulfilling all those conditions, that he is able to take community to the right path and to the door of taqwa. For example, when it comes to the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first of all, he examined him, and then Allah said, now we made you Imam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a very famous ayah, وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ وَقَالَ إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. So Allah is talking about the leadership. Or in Ayat al-Kursi also, we have two type of imam, we have two type of leader. They are leader those يُخْرِجُهُم مِّنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ. They are leader who take community from darkness to the light. But there are other leaders, those take community from the light to the darkness. So now we have to choose which type of leader is required and needed for the community.
Just to add to that, Nazir, sorry, it's true. It's the type of leader you choose is the result you get with the community. However, I also feel if you, for example, if I can use this analogy, is if you have a project manager, if his mindset is he is business-minded, you will achieve a business-minded results. If his experience is something else, you will achieve that result because his experience and mindset is based on that. So ultimately, if a leader has some basic level of taqwa, the community will benefit and will go towards that path of taqwa. Whereas if you have a leader who doesn't have taqwa, then that community is a lost one. And we have seen examples, many examples across the world and in history as well, of how communities and countries and civilizations have been destroyed because of their leaders and lack of taqwa or faith within them.
Right. Okay. So we've discussed and talked about leaders. One of the questions that we have over here from a youth, and he says that in his everyday actions, he does what he's required to do. Now, this is similar to the previous question we had in the beginning. He does what he's required to do, but at the same time, the people around him take things very lightly. They're not very religious, so to speak. I'm paraphrasing the second part. So they take things very lightly, and he finds it very difficult to integrate. What can he do as a youth? What can he do in order to break away from this thought process? So Maulana Sahib, just to explain it better, there's a youth, for example, he does everything he's supposed to do, praying, fasting, sab kuch, everything he does that. The problem he's facing is that those people around him commit actions, and I'm just paraphrasing for you, commit actions that do not conform to Islamic values. They're all Muslim. What can he do as an individual not to feel left out? Because there is that fear of the youth feeling left out and being alone in a sea of people who may not follow the same.
Yeah, over here, this youth, the example that you have presented. So this type of youth, of course, if they are living in such a society or in such a gathering, so number one, if they are exercising their religion, so they'll get more sawab, because the more challenges you have, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put more sawab, and his level of taqwa definitely will be increasing. Secondly, responsibility would come on his shoulder. He has to do, amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar as much or as long as it is possible for him. And thirdly, his taqwa has to play the major role, and that is, abstinence. He has to protect himself from the guna or from the sins or shortcomings those are exercising.
Okay, you
to add to that, sorry. I know it's easier said than done, but as the saying goes, be the change you want to see, So in order for him to make a difference within his surrounding, he has to exemplify that character. And I know it's very difficult in this day and age to destroy that negative actions that are around people, especially with the exposure that we have within our youth. But again, it's how strong you are. So you have to obviously work on that, fulfilling your wajibat, and it's a struggle, no doubt. Taqwa is not something that comes easily or comes overnight. You're not given a token and say, okay, here you now achieved a level. No, it's a struggle every day, every action you do. It's how you talk to people, it's how you react to others. We have seen people, people who in front of us in the mosque, they're wearing everything, the right things, the right way. But when they're faced with a certain situation, they're a completely different person. And so it's a struggle, and I agree with Maulana said.
Okay, Maulana mentioned something about Amar bil Ma'ruf, Nahy anil Munkar. So the first 5 of the branches of religion, those are mandatory, we have to do it, and they are physical acts. The next 5 are spiritual acts, right? Amar bil Ma'ruf, Nahy anil Munkar, Tawalla, Tabara, so on and so forth. Is that the last 5? Is there something that you feel that we need to work on in order to attain taqwa?
Number one thing, who told us that they are different? First 5 are different, the second 5 are different. Those all are same. And the way, Amr bil Ma'ruf is wajib, the way namaz is wajib, the same way, Amr bil Ma'ruf is wajib. But the condition applied. For example, for Salah, you don't have any excuse. You have to pray Salah. However, there are some conditions as well. But when it comes to the Amr bil Ma'ruf, once all the conditions are there of Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar, the Amr bil Ma'ruf become wajib. And same like Hajj. So I don't think there is a difference in between, furu'uddin. All are wajib, and they all are, the same level.
Okay.
Today
There's one.
in Majlis, my topic was, partially, it was Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar. I have given a hadith of Imam al-Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam. He said, Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar. It is obligatory, but faridatun azim. What is the meaning of faridatun azim? The greatest obligation is Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar. Why? Because tuqamu biha al fara'id. Because of this Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, all the fara'id, all the wajibat, all furu, right, starting from namaz up to the end, all fara'id are established by this Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar. So there is no difference.
Okay.
Before you go on to the next question,
yeah.
Can I just continue the discussion, if you don't mind? Because a youth has asked you, and because it is such a pertinent question in today's time, and not only does it affect the youth, but it also affects everyone else, in the sense that we are all accosted in this world, Muhammad mentioned, I think, with these guiles and vials of this world, which would provide an instant satisfaction to one's needs. You get me? How do you prevent that? And as a youth, these are in a different form. As a working person, they are in a different form. If you're old, they are in a different form, but they are there in any form or the other, like the Zuleykhas of this world. Do you get? So how would you prevent it? And he has asked such a pertinent question. He is in an environment whereby he is trying to be upright. He's trying to remain upright. He's trying to do the right thing, and he's trying to follow the right path. And around him, surrounding him, are people who are not in sync with him. But what about the others who want to do the right thing, and there are others around them also not want to do the right thing as well? But at the same time, everyone is accosted with these attractions of this world. So Rumi says in a very beautiful way, he equates this to a mother, a young mother, giving the birth to her first child. There is pain, intense pain, the first child, as she is delivering the child. There is intense pain. But at the same time, the child is happy, it's coming out into the world. The mother's heart is filled with joy because she's delivering her first child. The father is outside, the parents, they're all happy. This pain is there temporarily, but the pleasure that will be attained later on will be far more greater. And here it is that what we lose sight of the fact, right? We tend to take our focus away from Allah and shift it towards attainment of wealth, just like this youth. We shift our focus away from Allah and attainment of fame. Do you get me? So it's a sickness that is in all of us, in each and every one of us. No one is free from this, you know. But it's just that we need to recognize that in order to correct ourselves. So this youth is very brave. He's come out. He seems to have recognized this particular thing. Just needs to be on the straight path, and that is it. Perseverance, and just like how Yusuf did. Perseverance, you know?
So I want to, this is a follow-up question from one of the earlier questions, and Muhammad, you might want to elaborate on this one. The gentleman says, how can one practice taqwa actively? Like we can see or transact with or travel with someone and know without doubt that he or she is pious, like our ulama and our imams. But I'm not talking about judging someone. Can't we say that taqwa is apparent?
So if I was wearing a perfume on me right now, you wouldn't be able to smell what perfume I'm wearing, right? But if I walk past you or walk near to you, or I shake your hand, you will get the scent of that fragrance, right? So similar way, taqwa, when someone's close to you. So obviously, we all know that when you stay with someone, you will come to know their true character. You know, when you live with someone, they're free in their own domain, and you will come to know what their character is, as opposed to someone you just meet for 5 to 10 minutes. In a similar way, in order to realize someone's level of taqwa, obviously you will not fully, nobody can fully say that I can guarantee that this person has a proper taqwa. It's impossible. You can say that yes, he has some form of piety, in the sense that he's through his actions, not only through performing his wajibat and staying away from haram, but through his actions. The way he talks, the politeness. Politeness is very key. In fact, respect as well. There was Ali Raza Panahiyan. I don't know if any of you have watched his videos, brilliant 2-3 minute clips. And he talks about respect as opposed to love. When you love someone, especially in your family, without respect, that love is meaningless, because your love will fluctuate, but that respect will maintain that love. So in the same way, taqwa is something that you achieve through your actions, in the way you deal with your daily lives. So how do you do your business transactions? Are you honest? Are you cheating? Are you being fair, actually? Because he's my brother, I'm going to give him this rate. Because this guy's family, I'm going to give him this rate. Fine, okay, it happens sometimes. But because this guy, I don't know him, I'm going to inflate the price. Is that fair? Is that just? The prophets and the Aimma alayhi salam have also taught us practical taqwa, in how they treat people. They give more back to that person, as opposed to what the fair price is. It's out of that exemplifies their level of taqwa.
What you're saying goes with this. Someone, Zuhair, I want you to touch upon this one if you don't mind.
Yes.
Someone says taqwa is in the marketplace and not the masjid. It's very similar to what Muhammad was just saying. What do you have to say to that?
Just borrowing first of all from Muhammad, and of course the previous questioner, which I think the question is very pertinent with regards to the apparentness of taqwa. It all goes back to the basics. The aspect of taqwa, as I said initially, is actually a mindset, a set of beliefs within your heart, within your mind, in accordance to which one acts. Therefore, there is an aspect of taqwa that is probably apparent, but we cannot say that the whole concept of taqwa is based on apparentness. There is also a major chunk which is non-apparent. There is an intrinsic aspect of taqwa, and there is an extrinsic aspect of taqwa. That is as far as the aspect of that is concerned. Taqwa, as far as being in the marketplace, as that, of course, in that respect, there are individuals, of course, that would flout their apparent piety in the marketplace, as far as, of course, gaining some sort of an advantage is concerned. That is there. But in as far as the black sheep of in every community, we are expectant of them. At the end of the day, we are not a community of angels. There will be aspects or individuals who will be flouting their apparent taqwa in the marketplace for gaining some sort of advantage or leverage. That is bound to be there. But then we need to be the ones to decipher as far as somebody's taqwa is concerned. We are not passing judgments, no. And we are not, of course, going to pass judgments on such individuals. At the end of the day, one can know within himself, with the intrinsic aspect of taqwa, as far as the truth of that aspect of piety is concerned. It's not only, of course, the actions that will dictate. At the end of the day, it is what sets of beliefs are the ones that actually have given rise to those actions. Nazir.
You see here, Nazir, if I can just add on one thing as well, that it's basically losing sight of the fact that you have God in front of you, Allah in front of you at every point in time, at every moment in time. Be it in the marketplace, be it in the mosque, be it in your homes, be it abroad, be it at home, be it anywhere, be it on a holiday, vacation. But we don't tend to do that. We have separated. So we, in mosque, go with all this, clean intention, good intention, right? And the moment we're out of there or out away from our prayer mats, we're different people. We live double lives. That is not how it's supposed to be, right? Rumi says about this in one way. He says, you take it like this, that if you have forgotten one important thing and you have remembered everything else, then because you have forgotten that thing, everything else is insignificant. Now, he was talking about something else, but we can equate it to this as well. You forget about the fact that you are on this world to serve Allah, to submit to His commands, to lead a life that has been prescribed to us by Him and shown to us by the Aimma and Rasulullah. You forget that. The only time that you remember bits and pieces of those are in the mosque, the rest of the time, your whole life, you're spending it in a different way and doing different things.
So I have a question, Maulana Sahib. Maybe you are able to answer this question. It just came in right now. This is a double-edged sword, by the way. So let's clear our minds. We say that we cannot judge someone. But when people laugh and talk and they do other things, especially on days like Ashura, what are we supposed to think in our minds when we're not supposed to be happy? So I think what he's asking is that when people come out of the mosque on the day of Ashura, Majlis is finished, fine, we don't judge them, that's okay, that's fine. But what do we go through in our mental process? What do we have to say about that?
Yeah, actually for here, our ulama and Ahlul Bayt also, they have guided us. Sometime, and this thing, it comes under the chapter of Su'ud Dhan and Husnud Dhan. Su'ud Dhan means negative thought about others, and Husnud Dhan, positive thought about others. So we are told to have positive thought about others. For example, if somebody is laughing on the day of Ashura, so we should not have negative thought. We must have positive thought about him. Or for another example, if you see somebody is standing in front of the bar or at the wine shop, so straight away, of course, it would come in our mind that he has come, or he is here to buy the wine, or he has taken the wine. So if this thing would come in our mind, negative thing, so Islam told us that we have to rectify it, and we have to put we have to justify it and make this negative thought into the positive thought. Once
Can I add something to that, Maulana Sahib?
Yes.
I read a long time ago, and this somebody hasn't asked, but because we are talking about it now, I read a long time ago that if you are in a foreign town and you're walking with your mother, you should walk a few steps in front or behind so that people don't get negative impressions. Now, it's a very hard-hitting ideology or thought to process. And when I read this many years ago, till today, it sometimes hits me that why would I have to care what others think when she is my own mother, for example? And the same thing you're saying, that people need to have positive thought. Does anybody have anything to add?
Yeah, positive thought. Why Islam told us to have positive thought? Because sometimes what you see from these naked eyes is false. And there are a lot of examples. I don't want to give, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. So this is number one. Number two, if you have positive thought, it is very healthy for yourself and very healthy or very good for your religion, and you will have a comfortable life. But if you have negative thought about others, what is going to happen? You will go into depression, you are stressed, you are angry, and all that.
Excuse me, we're almost done with our time, but there is one question from the youth. Mohammed, did you say something?
Can I just add to that point in terms of people noticing others doing things on Ashura, on the day of Ashura. An example comes to mind, and we all know about the story of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein alayhi salam. When they saw a man performing the wudu wrongly, what they did was they went to him and they told him, can you test us, our wudu? So that is one form of Amr bil Ma'ruf that the youth can do. It's tackling this issue diplomatically in a polite manner without making that other person feel bad. But it is a duty of that person, rather than saying, oh, these guys are laughing. Why not they just do something practically, and maybe change that perception? Because you see, the other thing is the elders, unfortunately, some elders rather, because they've been raised in a different environment at that time, they've taken things for granted, but the environment that we're in now, and the youth especially, are more knowledgeable and more aware of what is happening, and so they're questioning things, which is very good actually. And at that time, there was no questioning. You could not question an elder at that time, maybe 50, 60 years ago. No, it was just go with the flow. So I think it's duty of us youth as well to correct the mistakes that the elders are making, if any.
So I have two, I want to combine two questions or two comments into one because we are now running short on time. So I will say both of them if you allow me. Advice to the youth, or advise the youth on how we can try to attain taqwa during these times where the centers are closed, and especially during upcoming Mahi Muharram. And how can we attain taqwa as a community as a whole? Because every time we tend to keep the youth aside while we know they are the leaders of tomorrow. Not my questions.
Okay.
The first one would be a bit more easier to answer than the second one, I think. And I don't think that maybe after finishing the first question, maybe the time might be over. But can you just repeat the first question so I can understand it properly, Nazir? Sorry.
Yes, advice to the youth on how we can try to attain taqwa during these times where the centers are closed, especially Mahi Muharram, probably referring to also the environment which plays a part, which we don't get right now.
If we've truly understood
if I may come in,
concept,
yeah, sorry.
Sorry, sir, you can carry on.
Yeah, no, carry on.
If we truly understand this concept, then we need to understand it's not to do with mosque being closed and praying at home or, you know, do you understand? I mean, it cannot be confined to the mosque. What we're talking about today is basically your whole existence, the way you lead your life. How can you achieve taqwa with the mosque being closed? Very easily. Lead a life that has been prescribed to you. Imam Jafar Sadiq said it. I think Maulana mentioned it. Muhammad mentioned it. Do the wajibats. Make sure you're away from the muharramats. And that is it. Ensure your prayers are done on time. Ensure you pray them. And all the other things that have been prescribed to us is that. Right? We cannot. Why are we demarcating the two? Azza of Hussein, have we understood, or do we just go there and get with, one problem, if I can just digress slightly, is this, that we have been born into this community, and alhamdulillah, and I tell you really, lots of shukr to Allah, that we have been born into this faith, right? There are some who are not as advantaged and have had a very rough journey to find this faith, right? But we have been blessed with this, but yet again, we take it for granted. Right? Read about Imam Hussein, read about the epic of Karbala. Right? There's so many things that one can do, but the thing is that it cannot be demarcated between mehfil, mosque, and home. It's a whole system. It's the way you lead your life.
Would you agree that this question basically, not to say that our youth are lost, but they need that direction which maybe they don't have right now. That's why they're asking such questions, right?
Absolutely, but they have been at such an advantage in this world today that we live in, this technological world that we live in today. At the click of a button, they are able to investigate. Muhammad said something about different eras, and today's youth talking and asking. Our youth, do they question these things? Our youth are supposed to be questioning these things. Our youth are supposed to be asking why one God in order to understand Tawheed.
But that's where the second point comes in. The second point says that the youth are stopped, like right there. They're not allowed to go forward. Can I ask Zuhair to
let me come in? Let me come in. Thanks, Nazir. Now, with regards to the issue of the aspect of Muharram and how the youths are going to, of course, react to the fact that probably the centers that are closed at this particular time. Remember this way, I mean, as far as one center or the communal center being closed at this time, does not restrict you to opening one within your own household. Therefore, if one Husainiya is closed, it has opened a Husainiya in every household. The Majlis of Hussein, the Azadari of Hussein does not stop. It will never stop. At the end of the day, if a communal center is closed because of the times, of course, we are subject to the repercussions of the time. It does not prevent you from opening or having an Azadari session with your own family. While one session is closed, it has opened Husainiya, and an extension of the Haram of Imam Hussein, as one scholar has put it, in every household, which of course has the alam of Abbas there. That is something we need to understand. As far as the center being closed is concerned, that does not restrict you in any way in commemorating the event of Karbala. In fact, if anything, it has given you an opportunity within your own household to open up an extension of the Haram of Imam Hussein by having the Haram of Abbas.
And also, we are very advantageous in terms of technology. We can easily access a lot of programs online in this day and age, right?
Yes, definitely, Nazir. To add to that, I think Zuhair has put it spot on. Yeah, but the other thing is, are you practicing taqwa in your families? You know, create that environment. You want the environment that you had in the mosque? Create that environment. Are you reciting namaz al-jama'ah at home? You know, are you listening to the majalis or reciting Dua Kumayals on Thursdays? You know, you can replicate what was happening in the mosque. It's just you can do it every day. You're not restricted to the programs that were happening in the centers. You know, it starts from
here is this. I just want to add on this thing to it, that as we do this, I hope that this sentiment has been imparted in its fullness, that by committing, by doing these acts, performing these obligations, it is not necessarily that you have succeeded in attaining taqwa. It's the whole way of life. The moment you finish prayers, pick up a phone and lie to someone, for example, in a conversation, that's it. I mean, you know, you need to be aware of all these things, small things that one does. I give you an example. Just because you mentioned about mosques closing because of COVID-19, we have been advised that do not shake hands, do not touch the hands of a mahram, right? Do not get into contact with them. And yet some of us are, you know, we tend to make excuses, right? That, oh, in today's day and age, it's not going to be possible, da-di-da-di-da. And here comes Corona, COVID-19, and no one is allowed to touch each other. And we fear the virus more than we fear Allah. That's how low the taqwa. So we need to build that particular aspect. As far as Azawaf Hussein, it's a good question, because
we fear the virus more than we fear Allah. That needs to sink in for a few seconds. Now, Maulana Sahib, any closing words?
Yes. For this of my youth, the thing that I want to suggest him, of course, we have to get some advantages from this. And second thing I want to say, that the Husainiya or mosque is not something that taqwa is confined in them. Taqwa is something that you can achieve wherever you are. Taqwa is not confined in mosque or in Imam Bara. And likewise, the aza of Imam al-Hussein, the love, expression of love, also is not confined into Husainiya. According to the hadith of Mawla Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, Inna quburana fi qulub muhibbina. Our graves are in the heart of our followers. Our graves are in the heart of our lovers. So our heart itself, it is a Husainiya. So the most important thing for the Muharram, I want to suggest to my kids and children, it is that in this Muharram, you try to, finish a course of aqaid. Aqaid, it is a very, very important. Aqaid means, understanding Allah, understanding Nabuwat, understanding Imamat, understanding Adl, Ma'ad, and Qiyamat, and all that. At least, there are a lot of courses available online. You make a, target to finish that course and understand your Lord, understand your Prophet, and have a ma'rifah of, your own Imam. And inshallah, I hope if you do all that, the maqsad or the aim of Muharram, you already have achieved.
All right, Maulana Sahib, thank you very much for that insight and for summarizing the topic today. If there's nothing else from our guest panelists, do you want to add any final words? And I'm strictly talking about 30 seconds. Anything? No, we're done.
Nazir, yeah. with regards to, of course, summarizing the whole aspect of taqwa, at the end of the day, The baseline is that taqwa, of course, is a mindset. It's, as Shabar has put it, a way of life in respect of one's thought process. The cognizance of God needs to sink in, and then it needs to show out in your actions. One without the other is incomplete. At the end of the day, our taqwa needs to take us closer to wilayah. It will need to take us closer to our imam, and of course, the imam takes us to Allah. At the end of the day, it is a whole cycle, a very logical kind of a progression from one just ensuring that your intention to attain the cognizance of God in your life is true, and of course, it needs to translate into action. Thanks, Nazir.
Perfect. So also to summarize, unconditionally loving our Imam of the time. And also, I want to say thank you to our guest panelists for this evening. It was a pleasure having you with us tonight. Next week, in about 2 weeks, the next topic we plan to have is upholding an Islamic lifestyle. And that should be one that is quite interesting as well, maybe a little bit to do with taqwa in the previous one. Brothers, Maulana Sahib, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And to our viewers also, we'll see you inshallah in 2 weeks.
Son, thank you.
Thank you.
Shukran.
Salam, is anybody here?